There's a particular kind of silence that children from strict households learn to master. Not the comfortable silence of peace, but the strategic silence of survival. You learn to read a room before you enter it. You learn to measure your words, calculate your tone, and predict consequences before they arrive. You become an expert at disappearing, not physically, but emotionally, shrinking yourself small enough to fit within the narrow lines your parents drew around your life. And here's what nobody tells you. That child doesn't vanish when you become an adult. They're still there, still measuring, still calculating, still waiting for permission that will never come. Picture this. You're 8 years old, sitting at the dinner table. Your father asks about your day, but it's not really a question, it's an inspection. You've learned that the wrong answer, the wrong tone, even the wrong facial expression can shift the entire atmosphere from calm to storm in seconds. So you smile, you say fine. You become practiced at giving answers that satisfy, rather than answers that are true. This is the invisible architecture of a strict upbringing. And today we're going deep into the psychology of those who lived it. Because the effects don't end at 18. They follow you into friendships, romantic relationships, your career, and most devastatingly, into your relationship with yourself. Strict parents never see themselves as harming their children. They believe they're teaching discipline, respect, hard work, and protection from the bad crowd. They look at their outwardly well-behaved children and think they've succeeded. And in some ways, they have. Children from strict households often become remarkably disciplined. They're punctual, organized, goal-driven. They understand structure. They can follow rules. On the surface, they look like model citizens. But beneath that polished exterior lies something more complicated. Because what these children actually learn is often quite different than what their parents intended. They learn that love is conditional, earned through perfect behavior rather than given freely. They learn that mistakes are catastrophic rather than opportunities for growth. They learn that their needs are a burden and their emotions are an inconvenience. They learn that authority must be feared, not respected. And perhaps most tragically, they learn to become masters of deception. Not because they're inherently dishonest, but because honesty in a strict household is dangerous. So they learn to hide, to lie, to create elaborate systems of concealment. They develop what psychologists call a split personality, one version of themselves at home that adheres to every rule, and another version outside that desperately seeks the freedom they've been denied. There's a particular tragedy for those who were labeled the good child, the one who never rebelled, never talked back, never caused trouble. These are often the most damaged. Because while their siblings might have fought back, creating boundaries through rebellion, the good child disappeared entirely. They became what psychologists call parentified children, taking on emotional responsibilities far beyond their developmental capacity. They learn to regulate not just their own emotions, but their parents' emotions too. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, understood that humans can endure almost any suffering if they can find meaning in it. But what happens when childhood suffering has no meaning? When the rules were arbitrary, the punishments inconsistent, the love conditional? The good child carries this confusion into adulthood. They become people who cannot rest because productivity is the only source of worthiness. They become givers who cannot receive, therapists to everyone except themselves. They build lives that look successful from the outside while feeling empty from the inside. Carl Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." The good child, now an adult, has spent a lifetime avoiding this pain. But avoidance doesn't heal. It only delays. Many people from strict households describe a strange phenomenon. They never rebelled, or if they did, it happened internally, invisible to everyone around them. Why? Because children will do anything for attachment, even abandon themselves.
The choice is never conscious. It's biological. In the absence of safety, the child sacrifices authenticity for belonging. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, explains this beautifully. Secure attachment forms when caregivers consistently respond to a child's needs with warmth and reliability. But authoritarian parenting create insecure attachment patterns. The child learns that their needs are conditional, that love must be earned, that connection requires perfect behavior. This is why so many adults from strict households struggle with what researchers call emotional asymmetry in relationships. They give profoundly, but struggle to receive at the same level. They support others endlessly, but feel like they're speaking a foreign language when trying to express their own needs. The rebellion these adults needed in childhood finally surfaces in their 30s or 40s. But by then, it's directed inward. They rebel against their own internalized voices of criticism, against their own impossible standards, against the prison they built inside themselves.